Good evening. This is CTV News for Monday, October 27th. I'm Gina Barty.
And I'm Rochelle Metzger. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, new Ebola guidelines take effect today in Maryland and 5 other states. They tighten safety measures for those entering the state from Ebola-infected areas. And our Byron Scott has more.
The new guidelines went into effect today. The state will monitor the health of all travelers who come to Maryland from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea.
The Department of Health is notified daily by the Centers for Disease Control of any travelers who have come from that area, and then they are assessed for their degree of risk for Ebola virus disease.
The new measures now require the health department, in conjunction with the CDC, to track those travelers for 21 days.
And then there's a plan for reaching out to those people daily for 21 days of monitoring to make sure that they don't have symptoms of Ebola, and if they do, to get them right into medical care.
Dr. Wilson says there are 3 categories of traveler: high risk, like healthcare workers who had contact with bodily fluids from an Ebola-infected person.
And so those people are being asked to go on voluntary home isolation for 21 days, and that's because of their higher level of risk. And they're being asked to monitor their temperature 4 times a day. They'll be contacted by public health and asked what their temperatures are. They'll also be asked about their symptoms.
Other categories are some risk, those who were in the presence of an Ebola person, and low risk, meaning they had no exposure to an Ebola patient. The state says monitoring will include direct outreach to people by the county's health departments. Javon Tutt says she's glad the state is expanding its outreach.
It's better to attempt to control than to just not do anything, and then something else happens where it's in another area and it just gets out of control.
And while the state is working to stay ahead of Ebola here in Maryland, because the Ebola symptoms are flu-like, they are stressing that everyone here in the state get the flu shot this year, if for nothing else to stave off any hysteria. In Baltimore, Byron Scott, CTV News.
Meantime, the 2014 general elections are just over 1 week away. And if you want to avoid the long voting lines on November 4th, campaign workers at early voting centers are making it possible. CTV's Janine Samuels has more.
Early voting is in full effect in Maryland, and here in College Park, voters are able to come and go with little to no wait at all. Now, this smooth process is due in part to the early voting judges and technicians that put in a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
We have 2 chief judges, we have 2 provisional judges, and then we have 16 election judges. And of course, we have 4 technicians that stand by and help us set up, help us tear down, and then are standby to address any machine problems that we might have.
The machines are set up and tested, simulating various realistic as well as stress test situations. So the machines are pretty thoroughly worked out before they actually come here. Daily, we have to each night, shut the machines down, sort of suspend the voting process, and then wake them up the next morning and make sure they work shortly before the public comes in to use them.
In addition to thorough testing of the voting machines, all judges go through at least 4 hours of training to prepare for their 10-plus hour voting days. But overall, early voting workers are happy for the chance to serve.
It's an opportunity to work for the county and the election board, and I was just very excited when I heard that I'm the chief judge.
Now, if you want to avoid those longer lines on Election Day, be sure to come to an early voting center like the one here in College Park. They're open every day from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. until October 30th. From College Park, Maryland, I'm Janine Samuels from CTV News.
To find an early voting location near you, visit elections.maryland.org. While early voting brings out some residents to cast their ballots, others are skeptical about the process and continue to wait for Election Day. CTV's Stephen Graves tells us about some of these rumors that keep people home and the truth behind them.
Early voting comes with short lines and little to no wait, but there's also rumors attached to it that discourage residents from coming. Well, CTV went straight to election officials to separate those facts from fiction. Rumor number 1. If I don't vote in the primary election, I can't participate in the general. That's fiction. Any Marylander is eligible to vote, but there's one condition.
As long as they're registered, they can vote.
Rumor number 2. I know there are multiple voting centers in my county, and I can vote at any one. This is a fact, but only until the end of the early voting period.
November 4th, voters must go to their assigned polling place, and that is on the back of their sample ballot to get their assigned location.
Rumor number 3. If I vote early, my ballot will look different than what I would receive on election day, therefore my vote won't be counted. This is fiction. Every voter's ballot in your district looks identical, whether you vote early or not. And one of the most popular rumors you'll hear is most likely rumor number 4. If I vote early or by absentee, my vote won't be counted unless there's a tie. Well, this is fiction.
All votes that are cast early are counted. And in addition to that, all absentee ballots that have the proper signature and are submitted timely are counted.
So now that you're able to separate some of the facts from fiction, it's time to cast that ballot at your local polling place. After all, it is your civic duty. Reporting for CTV News, this is Stephen Graves.
Well, if you have any questions about the early voting process, you're encouraged to call the County Board of Elections at 301-341-7300.
Prince George's police are investigating an accident that killed a woman on Indian Head Highway in Accokeek. Around 5:30 this morning, rescue workers responded to the crash near the Berry Road exit. The victim has been identified as 61-year-old Lucia Amaya Brown. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the driver of the other vehicle did stay until officers arrived. The cause of the fatal collision is still under investigation. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Rochelle Metzger.
And I'm Gina Barty. Coming